What's up, everyone? So, in this episode, I'm going to talk about how I fell in love with coding. So, in the beginning, when I learned Python in college, I thought it was okay. It didn't strike me back then as much as it did now, because when I learned it, you know, it was just okay. We were all building the same project for the same class, for the same instructor. It was an employee management system with Python. And that class really just taught us the basics, basic syntax, variables, for loops, if-else statements, stuff like that. And around the same time, I was also taking a Udemy course on C#. And that was basically the same thing. It was just a fundamental basics beginners class, or course, I should say. But it wasn't until I started building my own projects that's when I realized that I love coding. So I guess when I built my own portfolio website, I really enjoy CSS. I love the styling. I love creating the UI, the UX for the user. I love turning a basic plain website into something more aesthetic and better to look at. I just love styling, and CSS is like the best. But let's not forget about JavaScript too, because that makes it more interactive. But a little something else about me that you guys don't know is that I'm very big into martial arts. And so at the time I was into boxing, especially in the Mayweather. I studied his combos, but the issue was I didn't have anyone to hold the mitts for me, and I didn't have a coach to train me at home. So what I did and what I thought is like, hey, why don't I just make my own boxing app? And so I did. And this boxing app, it's very, very simple. It's not something I would, sell on the Google App Store or anything like that. It's more for personal use. But what this app does is it has a start and stop button. When you press the start button, it randomly calls out specific combos at random intervals, anywhere between 1 to 3 seconds. And it's random and it's constant. And first I built it in HTML, CSS, JavaScript as a web app. But then I started to dabble into Android development since I have an Android. So I downloaded Android Studio, learned some Kotlin, some Java, and I built it out. And when I finally got it to work exactly as I wanted, let me tell you, that was such a happy moment. I literally jumped out of my seat and was like, it freaking works! I think that was the moment when I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I really want to get into. Because then I realized what you could really do with coding and software in general. Essentially, software development is problem solving. And that's another reason why I love it, is because it's mentally stimulating. And there's so many different use cases and problems that you can potentially solve with code. And I'm the type of person that much prefers to sit down in front of a desk staring at a computer all day instead of doing any kind of hard labor or anything different. So being a developer definitely suits me. And I've learned since working professionally as a developer that the longer I stare at code, the more it starts to make sense. So to any aspiring developer out there, try to understand what every single line of code is doing, what its purpose is. I found that the longer I work with code, the longer I study it and look at it and stare at it, it starts to click. At first it becomes conceptual. You start to sort of figure out how it all pieces together, and then it becomes technical, where you can describe it in more technical terms instead of just speaking in layman terms. Then I found through doing this, when you look at other code, whether online or your coworkers, for example, you'll be able to figure out what their code is doing, and you'll be able to probably debug it as well. Coding is definitely not for everyone, but you definitely have to have a passion for it if you want to do it as a career. If you're in this solely for the money, I'm telling you right now, you're probably not going to last. Yes, it just so happens that people in tech, especially software developers, do tend to make a lot of money, but there's a reason for that. But if you're doing it because you're passionate, then you're probably never going to feel like you're working, and you're going to last way much longer. So you should be doing this because you want to do it, because you're actually interested, not because you're trying to make bank. Another reason why I love coding is that code, software in general, is at the core of everything we do in IT and tech, and pretty much everything we do in life. I feel like most people don't realize it, but from your car to your coffee maker to definitely your TV to the smartphone that you're using every single day, they all have code and programs written into them. And this is a very useful skill that will pay off very well into the future. I love to build websites. I love designing them, styling them, and just everything about it. I love building web apps. I love the fact that you can build video games with code, which is something I really want to get into one day, hopefully soon. AI is made from code, mobile apps, you name it. There's just so much things that you can do with programming. And remember, if you stay in tutorial hell, you're probably never going to get out of it. And that's not going to help spark your interest. What you really need to do is, after you do 1 or 2 thorough tutorials and courses, actually build out your own projects. When you build out your own projects, that's when it'll kick in, is when you apply hands-on knowledge and skills to do something with it. And that's actually when you learn the most too, when you build something. You guys listening probably already heard this and know this already, but it's true. You learn more from building, not watching tutorials. Those of you who are into cryptocurrency, guess what? Those are all made from programming. It's all code. Almost everything is code. Possibilities are endless. I also love to type a lot, so coding kind of goes hand in hand with that. I also love doing research and reading all kinds of different material online, especially documents for different languages, whether it's JavaScript, React, or any kind of framework, Next.js. That's another thing with coding, is that there's always something new to learn. There's always a new framework, a new language, new functions, new updates. So you constantly have to keep up and keep honing your craft, basically. But to me, it's enjoyable. I don't know, maybe it's like one of those ADHD things or autistic things. I don't know, we all are on the spectrum a little bit, right? I mean, I know I definitely have ADHD, so that probably has something to do with it, but I guess you can say coding calms me. But I think that's it for now. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the next one.